The rain tapped against my window and blended with the dull grayness of the night. I laid awake in my bed. The sheets clung to my sweat-dampened skin. Sleep eluded me for hours. My mind was consumed with thoughts of my upstairs neighbor, David. He was a mystery, a shadowy figure who inhabited a world all his own. Tall, with dark red hair, he cut a striking figure against the backdrop of our mundane apartment complex. Despite our proximity, our interactions were limited to fleeting hellos exchanged in passing. But for months now, I watched him, observed his movements, his schedule, with a mixture of fascination and unease. My name is Felipe. I'm 19 and just finished my second year of community college. We were obviously different people. As the clock inched closer to midnight, my restless eyes shot open when the sound of footsteps came from the room directly above mine. My bedroom stilled as I lay frozen to discern the source of the noise. The rational part of my mind told me he was just simply returning home late, but a nagging voice in the back of my head whispered otherwise. For months, I pieced together the fragments of his life. With tedious notes, I weaved them into a tapestry of suspicion and paranoia. His nocturnal habits, the peculiar absence of any visitors. Everything he did, everything he was seemed to point to one chilling conclusion. David was I couldn't say the word. I shook my head, chastised myself for indulging in such fanciful notions. Vampires were creatures of myth and legend, the stuff of fairy tales and horror movies. But as I listened to the muffled sounds which emanated from above, I couldn't shake the feeling there was something profoundly unnatural about him. With a sigh, I swung my legs over the edge of the bed and reached for the lamp on my bedside table, which cast a dim glow across the room. As I sat there in the darkness, my mind ablaze with thoughts of the supernatural, I couldn't help but wonder what secrets lay hidden behind his brooding facade. And more importantly, was I prepared to uncover them, no matter the cost? The next day dragged on. I struggled to keep my eyes open. The leaden blanket, which was the weight of exhaustion, pressed down on me. My mind churned with thoughts of him. His memory loomed over me from every direction. It became clear that my obsession with my neighbor spiraled out of control, consumed every waking moment of my life. I couldn't focus on anything else. The mundane tasks of daily existence paled to the allure of unraveling the mystery that shrouded his life. I couldn't eat, couldn't work. There was nothing I could do to escape my thoughts. I knew it wasn't healthy, but I didn't even know how to fix a problem such as this. As night descended once more, I found myself teetering on the precipice of madness, my resolve still strong. With a sense of grim determination, I made a decision that would irrevocably alter the course of my fate. I would sneak into his apartment and finally uncover the truth, consequences be damned. As the witching hour approached, I watched from my window as his silhouette disappeared into the night, swallowed by the darkness. Anxiously, I slipped out of my own apartment and ascended the stairs to his back door. My inner voice screamed at me to turn around. I wouldn't listen. I couldn't. Carefully, I tried the door, but it was locked. Luckily, the window next to the door wasn't secured, which was good since I didn't know what else I would do to get in. The metallic click of the deadbolt insulted the silence of the hallway. When I stepped inside, the eerie stillness that permeated the air also permeated me. The air in the room itself was made of hushed whispers of a long-forgotten tomb. I made my way through the dimly lit rooms, my senses on high alert, and instantly searched for any clue that might confirm my suspicions. In the kitchen, I found my first clue, a barren wasteland devoid of food or utensils. The stark emptiness sent me in a fit of righteousness. But it was in his bedroom I found something which stood out to me, almost called me. There, amidst the mundane trappings of everyday life, sat a small ornate ring on the nightstand, a relic of a bygone era with intricate design. It felt warm in the palm of my hand, or was it cold? Before I could fully comprehend the significance of my discovery, I heard the telltale sound of footfalls ascending the front stairs. This sent a jolt of panic down my back and out through my limbs. With a desperate urgency, I bolted for the back door. My heavy breaths drowned out the blows which were pounding in my chest. As I stumbled back into my own apartment, my breath came in ragged gasps. I realized with a sinking sensation that I still clutched the ring in my hand. A silent testament to the depths of my obsession and the truths that lay hidden in plain sight. I futilely tried to calm myself as I slipped into my bedroom. The weight of the ring burned in my palm and froze it at the same time. Above me, I could hear footsteps through his floor, a haunting reminder of the perilous game I unwittingly entangled myself in. For a moment, I held my breath, my senses on high alert as I strained to discern the pattern of his steps. Was he searching for the ring? Did he discover my intrusion into his private domain? The questions swirled in my mind. They attacked me in a maelstrom of doubt and fear. As if nature knew what I had done, his steps marched from his bedroom and toward his back door. I followed the sound as he stepped out onto the back porch, probably taking the time to check his door. Slowly, the sound of footsteps drew closer to my back door, each footfall a death knell tolling in the darkness. I cowered in the dark as I braced myself for the inevitable confrontation as down further and closer he came. But then, just as suddenly as it began, the footsteps ceased, replaced by an eerie silence that seemed to stretch on for an eternity. Then they returned to the boards above me. As a sense of relief waved over my skin, I dared to breathe again, the tension drained from my body slowly but assuredly. I chuckled nervously to myself. I turned away from the door, my thoughts already drifted towards the welcome safety of my bed. But as I crossed the threshold of my bedroom, he was there. He stood before me, a specter summoned from the depths of my darkest nightmares. Before I could react, his hand shot out, gripped me with a strength that belied his visually frail frame. I struggled against his grasp. My mind reeled with a primal heat that threatened to consume me whole. As his fangs drew closer to my exposed neck, I screamed, a wordless cry of anguish that penetrated the empty confines of my apartment. And then, I shot up in bed, my body drenched in a cold film. I searched for him frantically. He wasn't there. It was just a dream. I told myself, a twisted figment of my exhausted imagination. But as I slowly looked down at my trembling hand, I saw it. The ring, still clutched tightly in my grasp, its presence a silent testament to the truth that lurked in the shadows of my subconscious. One thing was abundantly clear: the nightmare was far from over, and the unknown that awaited me was darker than anything I could have ever imagined. The following night, the warm glow of the restaurant cast a familiar embrace over me as I sat across from Emma, my closest friend and confidant. But despite the cheerful chatter and laughter that surrounded us, my mind remained shrouded in a fog of unease. The memory of last night still fresh in my mind. I wasn't safe, not anywhere I went. I wanted to pretend I could push on with life as normal. But when I looked across the table at my friend, I realized it wasn't just my life I put in danger. Emma regarded me with concern, her brow furrowed in worry as she reached across the table to touch my hand. "Felipe, you seem distant tonight," she said softly, her voice tinged with a note of apprehension. "Is everything okay?" I forced a weak smile, my throat constricted with a surge of guilt at the thought of how thoughtless I could be for those around me. "I'm fine, really," I replied. My words rang hollow even to my own ears. "Just a little tired, I guess." But as I spoke, the hot ring froze in my pants pocket, almost burning my thigh. Then my gaze drifted towards the window, where a familiar figure passed by on the street outside. A flash of red hair whose recognition cleared my haze. It was David, my elusive upstairs neighbor. His presence was a dark shadow which loomed on the periphery of my consciousness. With a sudden surge of determination, I pushed back my chair and rose to my feet, my mind made up in an instant. "Actually, I don't feel good," I said hastily, my voice filled with urgency. "I should probably head home." "Are you sure? Do you want me to walk with you?" I knew she could easily see through my lie, and I'm glad she didn't call me on it. I shook my head while I pulled out my wallet to give her enough cash to cover the whole bill. Emma's brow deepened further, but I waved away her protests with a reassuring smile. My thoughts already raced towards the door. As I slipped out into the warm night air, I caught a fleeting glimpse of his retreating figure as he disappeared into the darkness, a silent beckoning that I could not ignore. With a sense of grim resolve, I followed in his wake. The rhythmic tap of my footsteps echoed in the empty streets and created a dirge of impending doom. I quickly learned to take my steps in silence. I knew I chased after danger, but the allure of uncovering the truth was too powerful to resist. As I trailed behind him, my mind whirled with 1,000 questions, each more confusing than the last. What dark secrets lay hidden behind his inscrutable facade? Was it really any of my business to begin with? Why couldn't I let it go? It didn't take therapy to realize I had more questions about myself than I did of him. The air hung heavy with a palpable sense of foreboding as I trailed him through the deserted streets. With each moment, the darkness seemed to press in closer, as it suffocated me with its oppressive weight. For several minutes, we walked in silence, his form a dark silhouette against the backdrop of our small city. But then he abruptly turned a corner and disappeared. I quickened my pace, determined not to lose sight of him. But as I rounded the corner, my breath caught in my throat as I came face to face with a stranger, a man whose presence sent dread through me. Before I could react, he brandished a knife. The blade glinted in the dim light. Panic surged through me as the man advanced, his eyes cold and void. "Your wallet and phone now!" I quickly obliged, but I could tell this wasn't all he wanted. To my astonishment, the man's expression softened, his features contorted with a flicker of emotion for the first time, before he twisted my arm so that he held me from behind. His grip was a vice around me. For a moment, I froze. My mind raced with 1,000 desperate thoughts. His cold, hard knife pressed against my warm, soft neck. And then, with a violent shove, I crashed to the ground. My body thrashed and rolled in a futile attempt to defend myself. But when I looked up, the man was gone, vanished into the darkness. A phantom in the night. I staggered to my feet and pulled my twisted clothes back in place. I struggled to make sense of what just happened, but before I could gather my wits, I felt a presence behind me. Slowly, hesitantly, I turned to face who I thought was my attacker. My breath caught in my throat when instead I met David's gaze. A smirk played at the corners of his lips. Blood dribbled from his mouth and formed a macabre grin. In his hand, he delicately held the items which were taken from me. A flash of the price that man paid for me to get them back. In that moment, I knew with certainty that I stumbled into a nightmare from which there could be no escape. The darkness claimed me, body and soul, and now, as he loomed over me, I realized the true horror had only just begun. As I stood before him, the chill of the night air bit my skin. I found myself torn between conflicted emotions. Fear and gratitude warred for dominance within my soul. I swallowed hard. The words caught in my throat as I struggled to find the right thing to say. "Thank you." He remained silent and only cocked his head curiously. "I'm sorry," I finally managed, my voice barely a whisper in the stillness of the night. "I shouldn't have followed you. I needed to know." To my surprise, his expression softened. A hint of amusement danced in his eyes as he regarded me with a curious intensity. "It's okay," he said softly, his voice a soothing balm against the cacophony of my thoughts. "I guess this makes us even." I blinked in disbelief. A rush of conflicted emotions coursed through me in waves. Have you followed me?" He nodded, without shame, without fear of judgment, and without losing that smile. "Oh, I like you," he confessed, his voice tinged with a note of vulnerability before he returned to smirking. He held out my belongings, and I took far too many seconds to gather the courage to shakily take them both. My mind reeled with the implications of his admission. Could it be true? Could David, this creature who haunted my dreams, actually feel something for me? As he sensed my disbelief, he reached into his pocket and produced the ring, the same ring I felt in my pocket only minutes before. "You can hold on to this for now," he said, his voice gentle as he pressed it into my trembling hand. "It helps me sense you easier." "How did you get it? I don't remember. I'm sorry, I didn't mean..." I paused. "It was wrong to invade your privacy." I didn't see him reach up, but slowly his cool hand pulled up my chin before his thumb brushed my bottom lip. "You're right, it was wrong," he said. "If I were a normal person, I would run screaming. But since you're still standing here, after knowing what I just did in that back alley, and you're not running away screaming, it's only fair I return the favor. Besides, you're kind of neat. Your eyes... You have a beautiful smile. It takes your eyes with it, even when you are simply just saying hi." Then he wiped the remaining blood from his chin. With a sharp smile, he looked me up and down from the corner of his eyes. "See you around?" I stood for a moment, unable to find any words. The streets went on in the distance, as if a profound event didn't just occur. I wanted to say something witty, something smart. I wanted my words to have the same impact on him as his words had on me. But what profound vocabulary could I put together? "I'm Felipe," I said. I know, I'm David. I know, I smiled, and yeah, see you around. Then after one last smile, he vanished into the night and left me alone in the darkness, my mind awash with a whirlwind of conflicted emotions. As I made my way back home, the weight of his words hung heavy in the air, a silent promise of something yet to come. And as I settled into bed, his confession still rang in my ears. I slipped into a peaceful slumber. A sense of calm washed over me. For the first time in a long time, I slept soundly, my dreams free from the specter of fear and uncertainty. I had no idea what it meant to catch the eye of a killer, a monster. But then again, I hadn't caught the eye of any man before him, so what the hell did I know anyway? As I drifted off into the embrace of sleep, I couldn't help but wonder what the future held in store. For me, and for this person who captured me in the darkness of the night.